Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, and welcome to the 105th episode of Primetime Sports. Hey, I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and we have a very unique show for you tonight. But first, how about your New Orleans Pelicans? I can't say enough about this team. Wow, they just won their 6th in a row last night. That is their longest win streak since 2011. I can't believe it. Every week it seems like all season long it's been Boogie and now AD that, they have a game where they're the first player to do this or the first player since to do that. Well, last night was no exception. Anthony Davis had 53 points, 17 rebounds, 5 blocks, and that's the first person in the 50-15-5 club since Bob McAdoo. That's the Buffalo Braves Bob McAdoo way back in the 70s. This team is on a roll. By the way, they have the 9th best record in the NBA now out of 30 teams, the 5th best road record, and they sit in the all-important 5th spot right now in the West, only a game and a half behind San Antonio, Minnesota there for the 3rd spot. Hey, the Winter Olympics, they just ended Sunday. It seems like it's been going on forever, just 3 weeks, but the U.S. finished 4th in medals. How are you going to beat Norway? You can't touch Norway. But here's more importantly, the U.S. did set a record in the Olympics for most gold medals in different events. That's right, 11 different sports, including our favorite for us our non-Olympic type athletes out here like us. Yeah, curling. How about this? The curlers, well, they got it done big. They won gold for the first time ever. Hey, let's switch over to football. The NFL Combine, hey, that begins this week in Indianapolis for the players getting ready for the draft, trying to improve their stock. Hey, there's 10 LSU guys and 2 Tulane players that'll be there, so a lot of local flavor will be there. You see Perry Nickerson and Ade Arune right there. Hey, in other sports, Alabama grad. Hey, how about this? Justin Thomas, a golfer. He won the Honda Classic in golf. Why is that significant, Scott? Because it's Thomas's 8th PGA win under the age of 25. And who are the last 3 to do that? Jordan Spieth, Tiger Woods, and the Golden Bear, one of the greatest of all time. You know him, Jack Nicklaus. That deserves a huge wow. And speaking of Tiger, well, he looked great this weekend, finished in 12th at the Honda Classic after being near the leaderboard all weekend long. The Masters are coming up, and I, for one, am rooting for him. Hey, other sports, LSU, they won the big series in baseball this week over the Texas Longhorns. They really needed that. Speaking of the Tigers, well, LSU basketball last week guaranteed a winning season. And after last season, that's saying something. Hey, and a couple home finales are coming up for local teams. UNO will host Southeast Louisiana on Wednesday. UL Lafayette, well, they continue to roll at 15-1 and 25-4. They've been so impressive. Also, don't forget Tulane is going to host 10th-ranked Cincinnati this Thursday. Hey, a couple of other interesting tidbits I got to tell you about Iowa. Jordan Bohannon, the guy that shot the free throws, well, he had the opportunity to break Chris Street's Hawkeye record for consecutive free throws, but what a class move. He missed the last one on purpose at 35 to preserve it for Street, who had died in a car accident during the season in 1993. Well done, Jordan. That's a class act. Hey, by the way, Nichols basketball, I got to say this. They won this weekend to preserve their first place in the Southland. And another heartwarming story, Parkland, Florida's Stoneman Douglas High School, the scene of that senseless tragedy a couple weeks ago. Well, they won state hockey title this weekend. Congrats to them. Great show for you. Willie Fritz, head coach of Tulane. David Grubb's going to cover the Pelicans in detail, and we have a new sport, rugby in town. I have the NOLA Gold rugby team. Well, that's a professional team in the Major League Rugby. I have their general manager and their head coach coming up next right here on Primetime Sports.
She had to go simply because, and I'll let her go like she never was. She had to go because she didn't know who Scott Scott Alexander was.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports, and I always love to hear my man Fred LeBlanc from Cowboy Mouth. Every time he plays, I get excited, and so does the rest of the crowd. Hey, you know who's getting excited next year? And that's Tulane Green Wave football fans, because this team is on the rise. They were one bad call away from going to their second bowl game in 15 years. That's how close it was. The team got hot towards the end of the season, lost a lot of close games early in the year, but trust me on this, they are on the right track. After a 5-7 season, I know all the Tulane fans around the state of Louisiana and across the country are loving the improvement they're seeing, and most of it's due to my next guest. His name is Willie Fritz. He's been on the show before. He came on when he got the job. He's been on before the last couple seasons as well. He'll be going into his third season in the fall, but he's here right now on Primetime Sports again. Willie, you're becoming a regular, my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
How you been?
I've been doing great.
Now, I know I seem to ask you this every time, but I've got to bring it up. We're New Orleanians. We love people to love our town. What do you think about New Orleans after 2+ years?
You know, we're having a great time. My wife and I, we're empty nesters. Matter of fact, I know we talked to, you're having Pelicans beat writer on. We got an opportunity to go watch the Pelicans play on Friday evening. Boy, what an exciting game. They won.
Oh, my goodness.
Overtime.
Yes.
And Davis and Holiday just had a sensational game. So
you
learning
hit the
more
town,
and more
you're
about
doing
the
everything.
city, you know, on a weekly basis.
Nice. The Pelican team is hot, 6 in a row, and we will be getting that next right here on Primetime Sports. But right now it's Tulane football I want to talk about. Talk about that game, though, because I haven't had a chance to talk to you. And now that you've had a few months to let it simmer in, I know the bowl means a lot for the program, and to have it so close, for those of you that don't know, Tulane was right there on the goal line. It looked like they had scored, and then they went to replay like, oh, this is going to be it. Everybody knows we scored. It's going to be a touchdown there. You see a little bit of it. That's not even a better view, but bottom line is, what were your thoughts?
Well, you know, it was a tough ball game. Proud of our guys. We fought throughout the game. There was a tougher call, I think, earlier in the game where we had a recovered fumble and ran it back for a touchdown. Yes, you're right. You know, it was the first game of my career where I came in on Sunday morning. I didn't watch the tape. I didn't watch it until over Christmas. You know, I waited a few weeks to kind of get it out of my system because it was a tough loss. Oh, it really did. You know, when you work hard and put a lot into something, you don't get the outcome that you want. It stings, and it stung for the players as well. And you know, but you know, it's one of the things we're talking about in the off seasons. We got to do a great job of finishing. We lost 4 games by a total of 12 points.
That's hard.
You know, so we had a lot of close ball games, and you know, we're close right now. We just got to keep, you know, forging ahead and putting the work in and get the results that we want.
I mean, when you think about that, and I know there's a lot of what ifs involved, but when you're saying 4 games by 12 points, that's an average of a field goal a game. And that could be 9-3 instead of 5-7, and that's when it really hits. Of course, you're not going to win them all, but let's just say you won 2 of those. All of a sudden, you're 7-5, and everybody looks at you maybe a little differently.
No, you're right. You know, but that's why they play, you know, 60 minutes or longer. You've got to finish the game, and you know, I just am very impressed with our guys. Their resolve day in and day out, whether it's the off-season program or meetings or, you know, just taking care of business. And we've all got a big goal, and our goal is to make Tulane a consistent winner year after year. And you know, we're on the right track. We just got to keep working hard.
Yeah, you're still going vertical, and that's what I know a lot of fans love to see, the improvement every season. Talk about some of the guys coming back, because listen, Jonathan Banks is special. He was a Kansas State commit, and he played for them for a little bit. And I know he's on the team. And you have him here at Tulane, and I thought the first year was as good or even better than expected.
Yeah, Jonathan had a great year for us. You know, it's always tough coming into a new offense, new system, and then playing in a tough league like the American. I'm a former, you know, junior college coach, and there's a big difference between junior college football and Division I football. He's just like everybody on the team, though. We want him to make that next step in his progression as a big-time football player. And you know, we feel like he's got the skills and, you know, the smarts that he can be a one of the top quarterbacks in the American. I know his goal is to be the top one. So he had a great season for us, and we expect bigger and better things from him as well.
Well, you surprised some folks in that conference this past year. I mean, are you going to be able to sneak up on anybody this coming up season?
I don't think anybody sneaks up on anyone anymore because of all the games on TV and all those kind of things. But it's a great league. We talk about it being part of the Power Six. We had 3 teams ranked in the final top 25, a bunch of bowl wins. So very, very competitive. You better not give anything except your A game week in and week out if you want to win.
Hey, I got to tell you this. It seems like ever since I moved back, I guess it's almost 6 years now, Tulane seems to have this huge stable of running backs that have been there for about 5 or 6 years, it seems. And you got some of them are playing in the NFL. Orleans Darkwa got a lot of starts with the Giants. Obviously, Rob Kelly got a lot of starts with the Redskins over the last couple of seasons. You're losing some guys. Sherman Beatty's gone. Dontrell Hilliard's gone. LaZedrick Thompson gone. How do you replace these guys?
Matt Forte, too. We better mention him. He's a pretty good player.
That goes back a little further. But, 2008, Matt Forte.
Right,
2007 season, I think. That's how long. But he was great.
This is an easy offense to recruit running backs to. And we've got Darius Bradwell, I think, had 130, 140 yards in that last ball game against SMU. We're hoping Dontrell and Sherman both get into a camp and have an opportunity to make an NFL roster. Corey Dolphine is a guy that was a transfer for us from Texas Tech.
Yeah, talk about this guy because I heard he's got some speed.
Yeah, he really does. He had the fastest time in the nation as a high schooler. He ran 20.7, 200 meters.
That's incredible.
And then Stephon Hutterson has played a lot for us at running back as well. So we signed 3 guys that can play running back, and it's always going to be a position we're going to need to have 5 or 6 quality guys because those guys do take a pounding.
Yeah, and your offense. I mean, your quarterback gets a lot of carries, but so do your running backs. How do you divvy it up generally? I mean, like some backs are bell cow backs, and you have a Fournette, he's going to get us 25 carries. How does your running back backfield or trio or 4 guys, how many carries per game do they usually each get?
It all depends on who's playing the best during a ball game. You'll try to feed that guy a little bit more, and who's playing best during the course of the season. If guy is durable and he can withstand the pounding of carrying the ball, 15, 20 times a game, and he's very effective, we're going to have him carry it 15, 20, 25 times a ball game. Sometimes guys are a little more effective when they're carrying around 10 times. So that depends on the individual and how he's playing during the course of the season.
I know everybody thinks that, the offense is run only, but sometimes you make those big pop receiving plays, and you got Taron Akalad, who's very special in my opinion. I've seen a lot of tape on him. Darnell Mooney is another one. Talk about those guys.
Yeah, they both had great years for us. We got into doing a lot of the RPOs, the run-pass option, which is kind of, across the country, everybody's doing quite a bit of that. And your quarterback's got to make a lot of post-snap decisions as to whether to give the ball or throw the football based on whoever, we're trying to key on that. And we got better and better at that as the season progressed. And, Jonathan Banks is really getting adept at being able to do the RPOs. And Taron and Darnell are both tough receivers who will catch the ball over the middle of the field as well.
Perry Nickerson's going to be playing on Sundays coming up, but you got 3 guys that are returning in that secondary. One's from Brother Martin, Roderick Teamer. Obviously, Donnie Lewis Jr., who I know you're fond of. And you have that freshman, Chase Kirshen from, I believe, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yes.
These are guys that all started many games for you.
Yeah, I got a bunch of guys coming back in the secondary. Perry's going to be tough to replace. He's one of the all-time leaders in school history in passes defended, PBUs, interceptions, and really did a good job of tackling the last couple of years. But, you got his stats up there on the screen.
Crazy, huh? Good stuff.
Yeah, he's really an excellent football player. I'm really hoping he's got will make an NFL team. But Donnie Lewis, he had a great season for us. He's a taller, longer corner, and he's gotten really has improved the last couple of years. The game against East Carolina, I think he had 7 pass breakups, which is a bunch of pass breakups. So Rod Teamer, really physical type player. He can play linebacker in the box. He can also do a good job playing man coverage and zone coverage. And we're looking for him to have a great year for us.
Yeah, and Zach Harris and Cameron Sample, a couple more that I'm looking forward to watching next season. You got spring practice starting March 12th, and the spring game, I believe, is April 14th.
Yes.
And that's going to be fun. So that's open for the public?
You bet. We'll go Saturday mid-morning. I think we're going 11 a.m. For our spring game on Saturday, April 14th. We're also going to have a big alumni event for former Letterman on Friday evening.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good.
Very cool,
We've been
Willie.
doing it the last couple of years, but we're going to try to push it. It's hard to, one thing about Tulane is we're a international university.
No question about it.
50 states represented, all 50 states, and 78 countries. So we're trying to get everybody back into NOLA and be able to meet a lot of those alums, Friday the 13th and also Saturday at the game on April 14th.
All right, I know it's an overused phrase, but recruiting is the lifeblood of every college football program. Let's say every sport, for honest, because if you don't have players, let's be honest, you can't win. But coaching does take you a ways. Players actually get you over the hump. You had a great recruiting class, and I know everybody's excited to hear about what's coming in. When I talk about your recruiting class, when I say it right now, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
A lot of quality football players across the board, and I think we did a great job on the defensive line. That's a hard position to recruit. It doesn't matter what level, what league you're in. And we signed, 6 guys that I think are going to be able to play for us up front. And we also got some bigger bodies. 2 of the guys are here on campus already, Jeffrey Johnson and Devon Wright from down the road in
Donaldsonville. Yeah, he's a big boy. Devon Wright,
and they both have got great strength.
Yeah.
They're 2 of our stronger guys in our program. So we've got to get, it's one area we've got to get better at is more size and more mass. And I think we did that this past year.
Well, speaking of defensive linemen, you got a couple Catholic school players. One of them is De La Salle's Jamarian James. This guy is an absolute beast. I've seen him a few times. And you got the defensive end from St. Aug. I don't know how you pronounce it. Juan Manjares? Or is it close or Manjares?
I've done it a little bit. I've been going Manjares. I think that's how he
The reason I said the Y like that, the J, because it's Juan. So I'm like, okay, it might be Manjares.
Yeah.
It is a J, but Manjares will go with that. How about these 2 guys?
Well, we're excited about it. We signed 8 guys in the state, and quite a few local guys as well.
Yeah.
Jamarian was the defensive player of the year in his level, and De La Salle led them to the state championship game. And Juan is from a great program there at St. Aug, and both those guys I think will have an opportunity to play for us early in their career.
Speaking of Louisiana studs, you did get a 4-star from up there in Scotlandville. I know LSU was on him. A lot of teams were on him. Dorian Campbell, tell me how excited you are for this defensive back.
I think he's got to play either safety or corner.
Yeah.
Tall, long. He got second in the state in the 200 meters the other day. He's got great speed, and I think he's got an opportunity to be another great defensive back here at Tulane. We've had a bunch of them.
Speaking of defensive backs, you mentioned Jamarian James, Player of the Year. A co-player of the year by the Advocate picked Damian Tate from Warren Easton. You see both those guys sitting right there as the New Orleans Advocate Defensive Players of the Year. Talk about what Tate brings you from Warren Easton.
When you go around and you recruit, you always ask coaches, hey, tell me about somebody in the city or somebody in the state or somebody that you played this year that you think's a great player. And I had a bunch of coaches tell me they thought that Damian was the top player in the greater NOLA area.
Great leader. And he's been playing there for a while.
Yes, he has. Yeah. And the thing I like about him is he does everything. He plays offense, he plays defense, he's heavily involved in the kicking game. He can return, he can cover. So, those kind of guys are rare, and we're excited about his possibilities.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up a couple 4-stars from Texas. I mean, 4 stars aren't easy to get for any program. Tulane pulled in 3 of those. They don't give those out liberally. You got a bunch of 3-stars. Those aren't easy to get. You did very well. But these 2 guys are from Texas. One's from Port Arthur, who was an SMU commit. You wrestled him away. Keith Jones, who, by the way, I remember him playing wide receiver and some quarterback even, but you have him projected as a linebacker. And then you also got big Tyrick James, the tight end from China Spring, Texas.
Yeah, Tyrick plays for one of my old players there at China Springs. His father, my former players, his dad's the coach. And I like watching these guys play basketball too. Great basketball player, and he played quarterback. He played wide receiver, played some running back. We think he's going to be a great player for us. And then Keith, he's a guy that we had a lot of competition.
Great athlete.
Played quarterback his senior year, and as a junior, he played corner and also safety. So bigger guy, 6'2", 220.
Yeah.
We think he's got an opportunity to be a great linebacker.
By the way, where's China Spring, Texas? I've been wondering.
Right over by Waco, right down.
Oh, it's about Waco. Yeah. Okay, up that area. Hey, by the way, you have a couple other local guys. I want to bring those guys up: Jorian Valiant and obviously, Macon Clark.
Yeah, Macon's from over at Destrehan.
Yeah,
excellent safety, good tackler, first team All-State last couple of years, and then Valiant's from over at Alexandria Senior High School, big, tall receiver. We need to get bigger on the perimeter, and I think that we did that with our corners and also our receivers.
I want to make this clear. Fans can go to the spring game on the 14th.
You bet.
Can they attend practice or no?
Some of our practices are
I thought they would
closed off.
I just had to ask.
And all, but we would love to have everybody for the spring game.
Yeah. Put that in your calendar, Tulane fans. That is Saturday, April 14th, and I cannot wait for that one. I'll definitely be there. By the way, I know you can't wait to get back to Shays de la Shays.
You bet.
You've been.
Excellent.
They told me you went in.
My wife and I went over there. We had a great time. They treated us in a fantastic manner.
And it's so close to your campus, you have no excuses.
Nice and close.
All right,
nice
right there. It's on Maple between Carrollton and Broadway, as they say. Willie Fritz, I appreciate you, as usual. This guy has been a trooper. Every time I've asked, he's made it here, and I can't thank him enough. Hey, I want to thank all y'all, but we're not done yet. Lots of show left. The Pelicans, they're on a 6-game winning streak. That's their longest in a few years. How about that? And they're 8 games over 500 for the first time since April 15, 2015. Last time they were that high? 2011. So this is unusual. Enjoy it, fans. I'm going to have David Grubb, CrescentCitySports.com. He's coming up to talk about that. And later on the show, we have the brand new rugby team. We have the general manager and the head coach. They're coming to talk about why you should get interested in the NOLA Gold rugby team. Calls coming up next on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned.
The owners of the Delachey's Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachey, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachey, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. You got the lowdown on Tulane football going into next season. Hey, we're going to continue that. Ed Ogeron is going to be coming up soon. Steve Ensminger, the new offensive coordinator, who was a former LSU quarterback, and he's been around college football for a long time. He'll hopefully be coming up soon. We got a lot of great guests in all sports all throughout the year. But this one right now, hey, the hottest team going, maybe not just in the city of New Orleans, possibly the NBA. Well, one of the top 2 or 3 right now is the New Orleans Pelicans. And I have beat writer David Grubb. He is with CrescentCitySports.com, also WBOK. He was a guest before the season. Wanted to bring him back during the season to kind of get an update on where he thinks this team's going, because it's been a roller coaster, as you know. Sometimes you're like, oh, my God, I'm giving up on this team. And other times you're like, I am all in. I'm invested. And I think most fans right now are getting excited for the stretch run. David, welcome back to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be back.
Former Carr basketball player himself. Where'd you go? Didn't you go off to college somewhere?
I went to Wake Forest.
You went to Wake Forest. You're a Demon Deacon.
That's right.
And how are your Demon Deacons doing these days? Danny Manning, the head coach?
We're struggling a little bit this season, but next year we're supposed to have a really good recruiting class, so hopefully the Deeks will be back.
So were you there during the Tim Duncan years?
That's right. We entered the same year. So,
So 93, 94?
93 through 97.
There you go.
That was the era where we won back-to-back ACC championships.
I remember it well. It was, that's post Raymond Childress.
Randolph Childress
and then pre Chris Paul.
No, so we played. Randolph was there for my first 2 years.
Okay, for you, he could ball. All right, now we're off the Demon Deacons. Everybody here wants to talk about the Pelicans. Right. You and I text back and forth occasionally. Mm-hmm. We tweet back and forth, and we've had maddening situations where we're like, man, this team just frustrates you to watch them. But I believe in that Chicago game from now. I know there's been some dips, but I saw a difference in passion. Mm-hmm. And in the Chicago Bulls game, I think it was about a month plus ago, they were down by 18 points with 8 minutes to go, and then they made that furious comeback. And I've seen a different passion from this team since that point.
Yeah, I think Alvin Gentry has been talking all season about playing 48 minutes for this team. And I don't think that means playing great basketball for 48 minutes. It's hard for any team to do, but the effort has to be consistent. And what we're seeing, especially during these last 6, is that the Pelicans are playing with great effort throughout the games. And that's how they've been able to withstand those lulls that they've had. And especially over the last 2 games, the third quarter has been their best quarter.
How crazy.
The comeback from the
Milwaukee game. You're down 17,
right,
and then you outscore them 38-19 in that quarter, go up 2 going into the final ledger.
And then last night you entered the third quarter down 7. You outscore the Phoenix by 14 and take a lead into the fourth. So the third quarter, which had been their biggest problem throughout the season, they were one of the worst teams in the league. They're now becoming one of the better ones.
And what I've noticed, and I think the rest of the city of New Orleans, besides the passionate play for most of the games, are they're winning close games. I mean, you knew close games were generally not going to go in your favor, and that dates back to at least 2012. I mean, some of these bad records, actually, the games were very competitive. They just didn't get on the winning end. You have to learn how to win, and I believe this team's doing that. The Miami game, they had many times I thought they might be out of that game. They came back and won. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Milwaukee, in these games, even though they came back, they seesawed all the way to the end and ended up pulling them out barely in the last few seconds. And even last night, the score's a little misleading, 125-116. This game was up in the air with a minute to go. They just happened to pull away at the end.
Yeah, the poise that they've shown, and I think especially you have to give that credit to Drew Holiday, who has been really attacked, and sometimes rightfully so, for his performances in the last 2 to 3 minutes of ball games, making turnovers. And then you go back to the Milwaukee game when Rajon Rondo throws that pass at Anthony Davis's feet and it rolls out, and you think, here they go, they've blown their opportunity.
I thought about you immediately, actually. I really did. I said, I wonder what Grubb's rolling his eyes right now at this one. No, I know. It's like, are they going to lose like that? Because they threw the inbounds pass and it just
rolls away.
Rolls out of bounds. I'm like, there goes the season.
But 2 things happen in that play. One, Anthony gets just enough of a fingertip to take a couple of tenths of a second off.
Yes.
Which then when Giannis misses his jump shot, it ends up in Jason Terry's hands.
Those
2/10 of a second change the game.
Yes, because that
shot goes
three-pointer
in
at the buzzer and they lose. And we might have a different scenario talking today. By the way, speaking of the scenario, I have to bring it up. 6 games in a row. Mm-hmm. It's the longest in a few years.
Since 2011.
Since 2011, 6 games in a row. That is 7 years, 8 seasons. That's a long time. But Anthony Davis game for the ages, it seems like I haven't seen a season, certainly in New Orleans, where you had more of these Boogie and Anthony games like, hey, he's done this since this player.
Right.
And or these group of players, whether it be Will Chamberlain, right. It's always these legends. Now, Bob McAdoo might not be a giant name for y'all out there that don't know the game, but as a kid going to Jazz games, I would venture to say at least a couple of those years, Bob McAdoo might have been the best player in the league along with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The dude was averaging in the 30s. He could do whatever he wanted. If they had a three-pointer, he would have been nailing that. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that 50-plus, 15-plus rebounds and 5-plus blocks hasn't happened since Bob McAdoo.
Right.
Boogie and AD seem to be doing this almost weekly.
Yeah, it's almost as if they're putting up numbers from a different era.
Yeah.
And when you look at Anthony over these last 6 games, 41.5 points, 15 rebounds, 3 blocks, and he's passing the ball better. It's just...
Well, those stats aren't that impressive there. But those are from way back. But the fact is Anthony's game last night even double what we just saw.
Right, the 53 points. And then what the most exciting thing for me for Anthony last night was that he was terrorizing the inside. He had a career high in 21 free throws. His attempts were a career high. And he fouls out the entire Phoenix Suns front line.
Yes, that was impressive. It seemed like every 3 minutes, another guy fouled out. 6 fouls is hard to get in the NBA.
Yes.
And they got 3 of those guys that just tried to stop him any way they could. They were using their fouls up, and they used all 18 of them.
And you talk about the effect that it had not only defensively for the Suns, but offensively. You take a guy like Dragan Bender, who had hit 3 3-pointers. And was shooting the ball very well. You take him off the floor. You take a Marquise Chris, who was a very active rebounder around the rim, and you take him off the floor. And what you saw in the second half was the Suns got a lot of second-chance opportunities but couldn't convert because their length was sitting on the bench in foul trouble. So you had a lot of guards trying to score in there, and Anthony was erasing shots. People were contesting whether it was Drew Holiday down low. Even Etuan Moore was getting in the mix. So Anthony really changed the focus on both ends of the court, not just with his scoring, but with his ability to get to the foul line and his ability on the defensive end.
Going forward, here's the thing. The Pelicans now have the 9th best record in the NBA, tied with a couple teams. Mm-hmm. But they're also tied for the 5th best road record. Mm-hmm. I think that would surprise people. 17-14 out of 30 teams, they are 5th. They have a little stretch here that could, I'm not going to say make or break the season, but it could jostle up a little bit of the seedings because you go to San Antonio, who, by the way, are only a game or a game and a half ahead of you right now. You're sitting in the 5th position. You're not far from being out of the playoffs, but you're also very close to being hosting a playoff series. So going on this road trip coming up, what are your thoughts about what the Pels might be able to do?
Well, again, you talk about 5th overall. They're 3rd best in the West, which is the tougher conference, as we know. So they
road record.
Right. Yes. And they're ahead of their pace from last season on the road. I think that what they've done is, especially you go to that Milwaukee game, you look at that they're coming together and figuring out their identity. We've seen
that was an impressive victory.
Yeah, they're playing with more pace.
Yeah.
They're now like number 1 in the league in pace over the last 10 games. So they've increased their speed to take more advantage of what Anthony and Drew are able to do in the open court. I think that their defense is now top 3 in the league in the last 10 games. And we knew that had been a problem all season. They were bottom 3rd of the league in defense. So now, even with the pace being higher, they're forcing teams into more contested shots. Anthony's been blocking shots. Emeka Okafor has been a huge difference maker on the defensive end. So that travels. Defense travels. You're going to miss shots.
Yes.
But if you play consistent defense, you always give yourself an opportunity to win, and they've been doing that.
They are averaging, this reminds me of you were a mere kid back in the early 80s, but when Denver would score like 140 every game.
Right.
Doug Moe's offense, and the Lakers, they were scoring in the 120s with Showtime. I'm not comparing them to Showtime, but they're averaging 129 points over the last 6 games during this win streak, and they're still the 3rd leading scorer team in the NBA, maybe 2nd even, all season long behind the Rockets, and I know they're right there with Golden State.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the contributions are coming from all over the place.
Yeah.
We've seen during the streak Darius Miller's shooting has gotten better. Ian Clark has been inconsistent, but his point totals have been higher.
Yeah.
Across the board, the bench has done better. And even with Nikola Mirotic struggling with his jump shot over the last couple of games, he's still found ways to be effective. His rebounding has been outstanding.
His defense
has been a surprise.
He's so wily. Okay, Let me say this, because we know he doesn't have a ton of foot speed, but he makes up for it in his head, and he's cunning. Even like it looks like, the pump fake towards the end of the game the other day, I thought, oh my gosh, Nico's going to go right into him. That's one of the most underrated plays ever. He held up, but he affected the shot. 90% of players fall into the player when they lean in, and especially you're all anxious towards the end of a game. But his defense has been shocking to me.
And last night he had some great defensive plays where he was able to block a couple of shots.
Yes.
And he stayed. I think that's the thing. The players are staying in the moment. They're not letting the bad plays carry over to the next sequence. And when he was not making shots in the first half, and people were like, oh, he's settling for jumpers. But in the second half, he got his rhythm, and he hit a couple of big shots. So what we're seeing out of this team is just an attitude change.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. The talent isn't any better.
Sure.
But the attitude has changed. And I think you see a more cohesive unit right now, and that's out of necessity. Without DeMarcus Cousins to rely on to do a lot of things, everybody's had to pick up their game.
You know, Del Demps catches a lot of grief from fans around here, and maybe some of it's deserved, but he doesn't get enough credit for some of the things he does. Like, he went out and got Mirotić right away. They needed him to continue to have a playoff run this year to keep the fans and Boogie excited for next year. Unsung signing, and he seems to do a lot of these, is the Emeka Okafor. I mean, the guy hasn't been on a court in 4 or 5 years in the NBA. Tremendous player, second overall pick in the draft at one time. But to see him in the G League and to know that that would translate into him being effective for this team, the guy still sets one of the meanest picks in the league. The guy has nice rebounding skills, and he's blocking shots still at 35, which is a little bit shocking to me. Can you give him a little prop for some of these signings like that one?
Yeah, one of the great things that Del Demps has done throughout his career here in New Orleans is find those diamonds in the rough.
No
now,
question.
we've struggled with the big free agent signings and things like that. But what Del has done every season is find 1 or 2 guys who can come in, whether it was a Tim Frazier, whether it was, it's every season.
Grits last year.
Yeah, Jamal Crawford. Jordan Crawford
right.
coming in at the end of the season and showing what he could do. So to bring in Okafor, and it was funny, Anthony joked after the game that he called DeMarcus Cousins right after and said, I'm riding with Okafor anytime.
Loves him.
And then the last time the Pelicans went on a 6-game winning streak, Emeka Okafor was in the lineup.
Yeah, he was back in 2011. Hey, I got to switch gears now. Basketball has been on a topic. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. This weekend, it's college basketball. Got a big black eye. We know the scandal that's been going on all season. Patino is no longer coaching Louisville, but it came to the forefront. There's some tapes that were apparently released. And it has head coach from Arizona, Sean Miller, who's a fantastic coach, was a fantastic college player in his day at Pitt. But Christian Dawkins is one of these runners, and I know that term very well in the business. These are guys that helps agents,
right.
Get to players, basically. They're the buffer. And then you have him, offering money through the agent, which in this case was Andy Miller. And then the player in this case is DeAndre Ayton, who to me is the best player in the Pac-10, 12 I should say. So what are your thoughts when you see all this? Because it's widespread. It's always been widespread.
And it's not.
Let's be honest.
These programs that they've identified, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We know that this has been going on. I mean, you can go back to the UCLA days, and people talked about John Wooden. There was a close player to the program. Close gentleman to the program at UCLA during their run. But to me, this is the impetus for true NCAA reform, where the players get a seat at the table. Because nobody's affected more than the players. Coaches will get more jobs if they get fired because of this, but the players are the ones who carry the stain more than anyone. Players who are directly involved, and then those kids who, if the program goes on probation or things like that. So I think the players now have the opportunity to really go to the NCAA and force its hand and say, what are we going to do about this? The NBA needs to get involved too in the certification that they give to agents. All those things are up for reform at this stage. And so I think the NCAA has a lot of inward looking to do about its rules and its regulations, and the NBA has to look about this whole one and done thing, because I think that promotes a lot of this as well. As
we're going to break, I have to ask you, I know you're an NBA guy, you're around the Pelicans every game. Who are your thoughts for the NCAA tournament coming up March Madness? You got any picks there for us?
You have to like Virginia. They play for the 3rd straight year.
Defense
they're playing
travels.
maybe the greatest defense that we've seen in college basketball.
They were up 30-7 at the half against Pitt this weekend. 30-7. I mean, come on. This is an ACC team. 7 points.
And I really like Carolina coming on lately.
Yeah, they're coming on.
They've been getting some huge wins. Those are probably the 2 teams that I've looked at the most because I came from the ACC.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I like Michigan as well. They've ascended to the top 10 as of late, and they've been winning some big games. And of course, Michigan State has been solid all year.
Michigan State's going to have a chip if my man Miles Bridges right there can play. Villanova took the on the chin this week at Creighton, but Villanova as the best offense in the NCAA, in my opinion. It's going to be exciting. It always is. There's your guy Jalen Brunson,
and it's a guard tournament.
It's a guard tournament. Here you go, my man.
Thank you so much.
It's just a little starter over at my place, Shays Delachey's. Enjoy it. Always love having you on. Please check him out. His name is David Grubb. He's on the website, CrescentCitySports.com. A lot of the great New Orleans writers are on that site, guys that have been around for years, and he is the young gun on that. Also, check him out on WBOK, or go say hi to him at a Pelicans game. He's always there. Hey, we're switching gears right now to a new sport that I've never talked about on Primetime Sports. First time I've ever worn jeans on this show, and it's the first time I've ever talked about rugby. That's coming up next because I have the NOLA Gold general manager, my man Ryan Fitzgerald, and their head coach, Nate Osborne. You can call him Nathan. I'll call him Nate. Hey, but he's coming up next right here to talk about their start of the season, which is coming up in a few weeks, right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. I told you this segment was going to be unique. I've never covered rugby on the show. There's a first for everything. I told you the first time I've ever worn jeans on the show, first time I'm covering rugby, and I cannot wait. Hey, the general manager of this team is a guy you know well if you watch the show regularly. His name is Ryan Fitzgerald. He was with the Reese's Senior Bowl, and he still does some work with them, but not as full-time because now he's the general manager of this team. He brought along his head coach for the NOLA Gold Rugby. His name is Nate Osborne, and they're both here together, and I can't wait because I don't know a ton about rugby. I've always admired the sport from afar, but now I'm going to learn more, and I can't wait for the season to start. That's coming up in about 3+ weeks, but right now we're going to talk about what it means for the city and what this league's all about, and here he is. Ryan, you've been here before.
Yeah.
Good to see you again. Looks like you give him a fraternity handshake right there. And good to see you, Nate. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. Thanks.
So, first of all, I got to ask you, because you've been on talking about football players before. I mean, I remember last year, around this time, we were talking about how Tanzel Smart and all the LSU guys are going to do in the draft, Duke Riley's and such.
Right.
But tell me how this came about. Like, how did you get approached? What's your background in rugby? And just fill us in.
Yeah, I have a background with rugby as well. Started playing in high school in Wisconsin. Before I joined the Marine Corps, I made the U19 team. So I played over in France for a bit, and then went to the Marines for a while. Came back and been playing men's league. So played in Wisconsin when I was home before I moved down here, and then been a part of New Orleans rugby since. New Orleans has had rugby since 1973 here, men's club.
So for 45 years,
yeah,
right?
So I played on our men's club for I moved down here in 2009. And been on the team ever since, and that's where I met Tim Falcon, who is our owner, and got associated.
That's my next question. Tim Falcon. Okay, he owns a team. Did he just come to you and say, "Hey, I think you'd be a good general manager," because of what you've done with the Senior Bowl, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, I mean, Tim's an extremely passionate guy about rugby. This is his 40th year. He grew up here in the West Bank, played at LSU, and then played on the same men's team that I played on for years.
And his sons played there as well.
His sons as well. Jared Falcon, who was a captain for New Orleans Rugby for a while. Cameron Falcon as well, who played at Shaw and then LSU, and now through New Orleans Rugby and NOLA Gold.
And one of them was SEC Player of the Year,
and
right?
then Brendan Falcon, who's the senior at LSU. Who's
That's a lot of Falcons.
Yeah, so they're a really passionate, tough family, and they're really, really passionate about rugby. And when this Major League Rugby league started, getting rumors about it, Tim Falcon went all in and wanted to bring it here to New Orleans and did. So,
well, there's finally some Falcons that we can get behind in this city.
Yeah,
all right, we got the Falcon family. Sounds like a lot of them play soccer. I can't wait to talk to you from Australia because, listen, like I said, I lived in France for a bit, and I never met an Australian I didn't love. You guys know how to have a good time and like to have a good time. So, but
Certainly.
How does this translate for you coming to New Orleans? How'd you get down here, and where are you from and where you been?
Sure. Like you said, I'm Australian. I grew up in Australia. I started playing rugby at the age of 4. Played all throughout my life, and then took a contract with a team in Denver, Colorado, to come over for 3 months and play some rugby in the old Super League that they used to have.
Okay.
And met a beautiful girl there and just never went home.
A woman always keeps you around, right?
Yeah. And so
the
then,
sport gets you here, but the woman keeps you here.
Sure, yeah. And so she's from Minnesota, so we moved back to Minnesota. We've been there about 10 years. So 10 years and 3 beautiful daughters later, I found myself in a position where I got to coach the national team at the last World Cup. So I was the attack and backs coach for the national team, and that led into a conversation with Ryan about taking the job down here and being the head coach, and jumped all over it.
I got to ask you, because that's a hard sell. I mean, for a family, because she's Minnesotan, right?
Sure. Yep.
And she's used to that way of life, and it's a beautiful state. I mean, one of the most gorgeous states in our country.
Sure.
Louisiana is a different culture. Another beautiful state. If you've been around the wildlife in this state, I don't know if you've seen it all yet, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But how do you get her and 3 young girls to all be convinced to come down to New Orleans? Has a different reputation, I would imagine, across the country.
Little
and
different.
It's not the wildlife, but it's the wildlife in another way. So how'd you get them to come?
Mate, it was very interesting. I've had job offers before to go places and coach and stuff like that, and she just never really wanted to. And realistically, I never really wanted to either. I kind of was like, I'm happy where I am. Like I own a gym up there with a few other people, and all her family's there, so it's great to have her family that close by. But after getting off the phone to Ryan and just really thinking about it, I talked to her, and she just said yes. She just was like, this is the one that I think we should do.
It's an adventure, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it really is.
While the girls are young, we can do something and see a different culture.
That's
and,
very
and
cool.
Teach them some stuff. And we're all excited. They're down here now with me, so it's been great to have them down here as well.
I know rugby is big in this city in certain parts, but the fact is a lot of us don't know a lot about rugby. And I want to ask you both this, and y'all can both chime in whenever, but first of all, when did rugby originate? I hate to get like that. And what sports is it a derivative of? Like, how did this come about? And what sports have been derived because of rugby?
Right. It started 1823 is when rugby started originally. It's got a mix of the football and
younger
soccer.
Than soccer, but older than football, obviously. Right.
And then there's a lot of similarities with football as far as like, when you score in rugby, it's called the try, but you got to touch the ball down. So that's kind of how football got touchdown.
Okay.
Instead of an extra football and touchdowns is 6 and the extra points 1, rugby's 5 for the try and 2 for the extra point. So there's a lot of similarities. The line of scrimmage is very similar to the gain line in rugby as well, with the scrum downs as well as versus just the actual how football lines up and snaps the ball. So there's a little similarities. There's also a lot of differences. Obviously, there's no passing the ball forward in rugby. It's only backwards. Anybody can run with the ball. It's not just offense and defense. You play both sides. So if you're out there in the field, you're playing offense, you're playing defense. There's not a certain position where Peyton Manning just plays quarterback.
Right.
You'd have to tackle too. So there's also a big difference too. Is the fitness level is very different. Football's a lot more of a quick 6-7 second explosive play. And then the whistle blows and there's the huddle, or not so many huddles anymore in football. But rugby's very different too, where there's only 8 subs. If you sub out, you're out.
Right.
So there's no a running back makes a nice big run for 20 yards or something. He taps his helmet, he comes out for 2 or 3 plays. Rugby, if you sub out, you're out. So there's a lot of, the fitness level is very different, and that the substitutions is closer to soccer in that aspect.
Coach, you told me something very interesting to me. I'm a basketball guy. I grew up my whole life like you playing rugby from 3 on, playing years and years of basketball. So you're telling me that James Naismith, who invented basketball a century ago, actually was a rugby coach, and this was an off-season sport for him. Please explain.
That's the intel I've got, mate. They told me that that's how basketball started. It was he wanted to get some fitness in for his players. And
stay in shape off-season.
Stay in shape, and it's a game that's like rugby is based on decision making. So if there's 2 people running at me in rugby, I know that I need to get rid of the ball because there's a space somewhere. And that's the same as basketball. You can kind of look at the defense and the offense, and it's similar in terms of how they're trying to move people around and open up spaces and lanes for people to run into.
We're going to talk about some of the great players you brought in from around the world, which I think is absolutely fascinating, and I love it. But tell everybody where the season is being played and when does it start? I'll start with you.
So guys have been in town since January. Our training camp was pretty much the whole month of January, even leading up to February. We've had 2 exhibition games already.
Okay.
We're going to have some more test matches here coming up. Our actual full-time, full-season schedule will start April 21st. And our home games are going to be played actually right over on the West Bank, just out at
the season starts in April.
The actual season that actually, like I said, right now we're just in preseason test matches and everything that leading up. Our actual season that actually count towards the standings and everything that towards the championship will be starting on April 21st.
And right now, this is mostly a west of the Mississippi sport. I mean, with the Major League Rugby, I'm saying, because you got San Diego, you got Houston, you got Austin, you've got Seattle, you've got Glendale, Colorado, right outside Denver, and New Orleans, and I'm missing one.
Salt Lake City, Utah.
Salt Lake City, Utah. So this is a Western sport so far.
It is. Yep. I know that New York's already signed on to come into the league next year, and there's talks about
couple
some
more
other teams.
Lots of travel expenses here, though, I have to imagine.
There is,
That's your job, though.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it.
It's completely Ryan's job, mate.
There's a lot of big markets in the mix to come on board next year, so it's going to be as well. So if everything takes off, plus also CBS Sports Network signed on.
Oh, that's a huge thing. I want to talk about CBS Sports Network is a big deal because you got a contract without ever playing a game.
Right, haven't kicked off a real game yet, and they're already on board for.
And I know on my cable TV on Cox, it's 3:15 or 13:15, or right in that neighborhood. So you're already on an established network with a big parent company at CBS. That's got to be huge for you.
It's massive for us.
Yes.
It's massive for the players as well, that they can feel like that they're professional athletes. And that's a big deal to these guys. So they're getting paid to play rugby, get paid to play a game that they were playing for love.
Speaking of love and speaking of the game and speaking of pay, you got some great players. Was it a concerted effort to get guys from all over the world? I mean, you got guys from New Zealand and Chile and Tonga and Fiji, I can go on, South Africa, Australia, it goes on. So was this an effort that y'all did on purpose?
Yeah, well, I mean, a big thing for us as far as putting the roster together as well was not only obviously just talent on the field, but also character. When these guys are coming from all these places and the level that these guys are coming at, they're captains of their clubs everywhere else. They're guys that are competing for their national team from their country. So it's not just a perfect science of just throwing 15 all-stars out there and it works. Character is a big part about it as far as guys meshing. So far, the first 2 months out the chute for us, we've been, it's been pretty exciting to see that these guys.
I love the promo pics. You got some good ones up there.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean,
those are sharp.
These guys genuinely like each other, and a lot of these guys have come in here, didn't know each other 8 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And like I said, building that team camaraderie and that brotherhood is a big part about the character for us.
I want to bring up some of the names. Your captains, Taylor Houghton from New Zealand, obviously Sebastian Eloff. No, Sebastian Colm. I'm getting them down. JP Eloff. I'm trying to remember all these names. Ben Tarr, Eric Howard are just 5 of your great players.
Right. Yeah. We've got a lot of great players. I think any time you look at, when you talk about rugby, you talk about the spine of the team, which is the hooker, which is Eric, the 8, which is Sebastian, our 9, Holden, Taylor's our 10, and then JP's our 15. So that kind of goes right up the middle of the team, and then everyone else kind of fans off that, and we got some really, really exciting.
Some great names too. Vince Jopo, I love that one.
Vince is a great player.
You got Jojo. I'll just go his first name because I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
And I have to mention the owner's son because he's an LSU guy. Went to Shaw himself.
Yeah.
Probably played right near there. His sports growing up. That's Cam Falcon, right?
Cam Falcon.
Cam Falcon. He's a great player in his own right as well. So he's not just the owner's son. He's definitely he would be on one of the teams if we didn't have a team in New Orleans. He's definitely a top class player as well.
20 seconds each. I want you to say why people need to come watch this.
It's an exciting, fast-paced, fun sport. It's awesome. I think people are going to recognize talent and athleticism. This city has got it, and the city really respects that. So from a fan base, as anybody that is sitting in the stands watching it, to learn a game like this that is that fast-paced, up-tempo, and fun, and they're gonna love it.
Ooh, he just stole all my stuff.
He stole all his stuff.
I should have gone first. I should have been first.
You got some great players from around the world. How about that?
We got some great athletes and great players from around the world. We got guys that have been working hard every day. This is their job. So their job is to come out and play some great rugby, and it's going to be very entertaining. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be, like Ryan said, fast-paced and different to any other sport that you've ever witnessed. If you've never seen a rugby game, get out there because there's some massive collisions and there's some great rugby.
I haven't met an Australian that didn't love beer either. I don't know if you do or don't, but this is a wine bistro. You can ask him for a pint of wine. How about that? So here you go. This is Shays Delashays. You both check it out over there. Let them know where you came from.
Thanks very much.
Let them know, hey, because you might get some new fans wherever you go. I'm sure that you're networking everywhere you go. But I appreciate you both coming on the show.
Thank you, man.
Thanks
so much.
Thank you so much. And I can't
Thanks
wait to go to the first game. I am fired up.
Awesome.
No, this did the job for me. I am in. I will be coming to some games, and I hope the rest of the city, it catches fire because we have a new sport to enjoy. Hey, basketball season's wrapping up, and they're kind of towards the end of it. They're playing when football's off, so this is perfect for us. We have something else to do in the spring and summer months, and that is Major League Rugby with the NOLA Gold. And by the way, they have the coolest logo. That might be as cool as logos we have in town. I know we're all partial to the fleur-de-lis, but maybe this thing will grow on us. So I want to thank you both, Ryan Fitzgerald and obviously Nate Osborne. Thank you both. Also, early in the show, Tulane football head coach Willie Fritz. He was phenomenal. And then David Grubb gave you the rundown on the Pelicans. Hey, like I told you, I have a lot of Saints coming up. A lot of LSU coaches and players are coming up. We're going to have a great spring right here on Primetime Sports. I want to thank everybody at CST and WLE. Have a good week. We'll see you again next week right here on Primetime Sports.